I want to talk a moment about some of the research studies that have been conducted in regard to age discrimination. In one of the largest, 418 empirical studies examined the research that had been done on age and 39 different variables, preconceived notions that hiring managers and HR representatives had when it came to an older worker. And of these 39 variables, 5 really kind of rose to the top. And these are 5 that you can actually address before you even walk into an interview. So let me share with you some examples of this. The first, and I've talked about this one in many earlier videos, is that there's a preconceived notion by many hiring managers and HR people out there. The older worker is not going to have the energy or the drive or the ambition to do the work. Now, by the way, of all these empirical studies, there was no evidence found on this. So I want you to understand this right off the bat. There was a preconceived notion, but there was no evidence that backed this up. So how do you deal with this? Well, number one, you probably know as well as I do that a lot of people out there in their 30s and 40s don't seem to have any drive or ambition or the energy to do the job. I've seen people that actually seem like they're falling asleep when I'm talking to them, and yet I've seen people in their mid-60s and even mid-70s be extremely energetic, and I wouldn't have any doubts whatsoever that they would not be able to do the work. So your job is to make that solid impression within the first 7 seconds of meeting that individual. How are you coming into the interview to present yourself? One of the things that I often recommend to my clients is there is a really cool video out on udemy.com, and I'll leave the link below, by an individual called Vanessa Van Edwards, and she's a body language coach. And she has this video out there, I think it's called the 7 scientifically proven steps to increase your influence. It's a completely free class. I'm not affiliated with Vanessa Van Edwards in any sense, but she has some really good resources out there. So again, I'll leave this resource, a link to this resource in the notes section below. Definitely one you want to check out. The second concern that many hiring managers and HR people have is that the individual is going to not have the willingness to participate in training and self-development classes. Now, by the way, of all these 5 that I'm citing here in this video, this is the only one that does have some empirical evidence behind it, that they have found when they've done research studies that an older worker often will not participate in these kind of training classes. So you need to participate in these before you even walk into the interview. One of the best ways to do this is through continuous online training and development. And in an earlier video, and I will put this link also in the notes section below, or you can click it in the upper right hand corner, I did an earlier video that talked about resources out there that are available to you right now where you can participate in some online training. There's Udemy, there's Udacity, there's Coursera, there's lynda.com. I have all of these links and a little bit more about all of this information in the video that's linked above. The third is an element of distrust. They feel that the older worker, the more mature worker, is not going to have the trust that other, say younger workers will have. So this is what you need to do to address this. You need to have your accomplishments there in your resume. And when I say accomplishments, a lot of people talk about task-related issues. I want you to give bullet points of your accomplishments, and some of these bullet points of your accomplishments I want to be success stories where you're using words like collaborated with other team members or whatever it is to show that you worked with teams, other departments, because that shows that you have worked and that you have developed trust with these other individuals. And not only that, not only have your accomplishment statements there, but be prepared to talk about these and the wins that have happened with the teams. You're going to use star stories and source stories. And if you don't know what these are, I have another video. The links should be showing up right now in the upper right hand corner, plus I'll put it in the notes below, of earlier videos I've done informing star stories and source stories. That's a whole different video. But what you need to do is you need to create some stories of the accomplishments that you've had working with other individuals. So that's how you're going to address the trust issue. The fourth concern that a hiring manager or HR representative may have towards the older worker is resistance to change. Oftentimes, a more mature worker is perceived as someone who is going to be more resistant to change. So just like the trusting issue, where I'm suggesting to have some bullet points on your successful accomplishments that included collaboration, I want you to have some successful accomplishments on your resume, bullet points, that showed how you either drove change, initiated change, or supported change. But it doesn't stop there. You also have to have some star or source stories that show that you'll be able to discuss during the interview when one of these bullet points is brought up. Or even better so, if you're asked a question, can you tell me a time when, or can you give me an example of, that you bring up one of these star stories that involves how you drove or supported change. You're going to eliminate that concern right off the table by a star story or a source story, and with a bullet point of accomplishment on your resume. The final one is health problems. And this is kind of an unspoken one because it's not going to be asked about in the interview. Do you have any health related issues? However, this could be a concern of the hiring manager or the HR individual. And by the way, again, I wanted to talk about this, so go back to this. Of all of these that I'm citing, the only one that had evidence behind it was a lack of willingness to participate in training. Health-related issues, there was no empirical evidence behind it, but it still could possibly be a concern of the hiring manager or the HR person. So this is the only way that you can really address this, because it's not going to really come out in a question. But what I want you to do is I want you to go into the interview with essentially this mantra in the back of your head. I am a professional. I create no problems. I have no problems. And I'm going to solve all of your problems. This actually works for every one of those concerns. I'm a professional. I have no problems. I create no problems. And I'm going to solve all of your problems. This is the image that you need to project out when you're in the interview. And by the way, I need to end this video on this note here. It was your resume and it was the phone screen that validated your competence. You know, so many individuals, they go into the interview believing that, it's going to be a mistake if they don't hire me because I'm the most qualified for this position. I'm 150% qualified for this position. But at the end of the day, the interview is not about your competence anymore. Sure, you're going to be asked some questions regarding your competence, but really what it boils down to now is about compatibility and likability. You see, the hiring manager, you may think that you're 150% fit for this position, but when it comes to the hiring manager, he has 3 or 4 other individuals that he's interviewing that in his mind are just as competent to do the job. Who is he going to get along with the best? Who's going to be the most compatible? Who's going to be the professional? Who's not going to have the problems? Who's going to not create any problems? And who is going to solve all of his problems? That's the image that you want to project when you walk into the interview. I guarantee it, that's going to move you up to the top of the pyramid there. So I hope you found this video informative and useful. And if so, make sure that you subscribe to this channel, as I do upload a new career strategy every Tuesday. And finally, I'm excited to announce a new online course that I recently created called Finding a Job That Fuels Your Passion. So if you're currently in career transition, definitely check it out. You can even test drive one of the courses at no cost. The link is in the notes section below. Thank you for stopping by, and I will see you in the next video.